What's up, friends? I'm Johnny with Talking XP. Let's level up your gameplay and learn how to play Darrington Press's new game, Queen by Midnight. First, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That'll help out tremendously, but let's get started. The Midnight Queen is dead. As her kingdom weeps, the issue of her succession is paramount. To the shock of the realm, the Queen's dying wish was to invoke the Rule by Midnight, a 24-hour trial of combat and guile, where princesses of the Twelvefold are summoned to court to battle one another. At the stroke of midnight, the most powerful princess left standing will be crowned the new queen. Who will be the Queen by Midnight? Queen by Midnight is a battle royale deck building game that features a beautiful rotating centerpiece clock tower where you roll dice and choose to purchase cards from the bazaar. This game is filled with pacts and betrayal, deception, and brawn as you work against each other to become the Queen by Midnight. This game carries out by taking turns in a clockwise fashion. Each player first rolls the dice and the highest rolling player starts the game. You're able to perform a short list of actions, including attacks, defenses, and resource gaining, along with card purchasing. There is no limit to what you can do during your turn outside of the limit of how many cards you have and your limited amount of resources, and which cards you decide to play this round. Once you choose to end your turn, it moves on to the next person, then the next, until it reaches the first player of that round, in which the clock tower advances by 1 hour. There are also special events that happen with certain hours of the game. Some events include replacing the bazaar cards with other decks with more powerful cards, or declaring your allegiance to another princess in hopes that should you be knocked out early, you can then aid this other princess to victory, crowning them as queen and you as their advisor. Once the clock strikes 12, each princess combines their total health and clout, and the princess with the most, or the only princess left standing, is crowned the victor and the Queen by Midnight. With the basics aside, let's get into the nitty-gritty and get your table ready to play. First, starting with unpacking all of your things. Inside, there is an instruction booklet that tells you all of the items that you should have in your box right here, and go ahead and take a look at that if you'd like. Otherwise, make sure to keep the small bags that you get when you first open your box, because these are really useful for keeping all of these smaller tokens separate and making it a lot easier to set up and clean up your game. But let's get started with the best part, building the awesome clock tower. This thing is so cool, and with the way that the platform is set up with all the small indents for cards, it makes it feel like they thought of everything. So first up, of course, you want to take all of the pieces out of the cardboard sheets. Then we're going to lay all of the pieces out so that we can easily identify the numbers on each piece. Grab all 3 clock tower gears and set them nearby. You'll want to look for the small rivets that connect these gears to the clock tower pieces. These are 2 black smaller rivets and 1 longer tan rivet. Next, we want to grab the cardboard pieces that look like this. Adding the gears to these pieces is simple. First, undo these rivets. They're a little tough to disconnect, but once you do, the assembly is super easy. We'll just bring the large gears over to these 2 side parts, lining up the holes and making sure that the arrows point to the top and these little symbols at the bottom are at the bottom. We just insert the rivets and click. Then we take the smaller gear, lining it up with the center hole of this longer piece, grabbing the beige rivet and clicking that in, and we are now done with the gears. Now we grab these pieces and connect them like so. This next part is pretty simple. All you have to do is fold this piece in and slide this piece into the top. Now grab the back side of the clock tower and place that here. And now the front side of the clock tower, same thing. Now we attach the gearbox to the lower half, the top slits connecting on each piece. And finally, the last 4 pieces to complete it. The bottom 2 are meant to keep the gearbox in place, and the top 2 are meant to be where you drop your dice in. The clock tower is now finished. The only thing left is the small dice tray that you will then fit at the base of the tower. The platform that the clock tower sits on is extremely cool. It rotates so that everyone can reach for the bazaar, where you can then purchase ability cards with your cloud points. Now that we have created the clock tower, it is time to set your game up. First, you want to unwrap all of the cards, of course. We're going to be separating each of them into 4 different piles. The first pile is going to be the princess cards, which is going to be a pretty big stack with all of them. The last 3 are the bazaar cards. We'll separate each of them into the afternoon, twilight, and evening cards. These can easily be identified by the top graphic on the bazaar cards. Left side is afternoon, middle is twilight, and the right side is midnight. Shuffle the afternoon cards, and then set them to the right of the clock tower's dice tray, and pull the top 3 cards, placing them in the bazaar. Place the twilight and midnight cards to the side. We'll be using them later. Now you can set the clock to 1 if you have 3 players, 2 if you have 4 players, 3 if you have 5 players, and 4 if you have 6 players. With the clock tower set, now let's learn about who each of these princesses are. For your first playthrough, I recommend just picking whichever princess you find to be interesting and trying them out to get the rules down, but here's a quick intro for each of them. Hephaestus, the paladin princess of Prism Vale. She endured a difficult childhood marked by her mother's death in the Battle of Twilight Gulch. Her father's subsequent marriage to an ambitious steward resulted in his mysterious death, leaving Hephaestus a servant to work her days in the crystalline mines. Mocked by her stepsisters, she was also known as Crucibella, and following a fiendish invasion due to the mine collapsing, Hephaestus heard a voice that led her to her mother's crystalline armor, and she used it to aid her people against the threat and subsequently challenged her stepfamily to a battle 3-on-1. Victorious, but questioning her destiny, Hephaestus ponders the significance of her rise to power as the rule by midnight is invoked. You would like to play Hephaestus if you want to outlast your friends by defending yourself from their attacks and casting healing spells on yourself while simultaneously inching your way to victory. Boss No, the Princess of the Twilight Forest. Princess Noelle, also known as Boss No, was once a merchant's child and cunningly rose to power in the Twilight Forest, taking control of the Assassin's Guild, the Seven, through investments in magic. They orchestrated the assassination of the previous princess, solidifying their rule. Whispered threats and mirror-based surveillance kept the townships around her subdued, and with the entire forest under their control, Boss No earned the title of Fairest of them all. When the rule by midnight reached the hooded Holt, Boss No smirked and thought of a conversation they once had with the queen shortly before her death. Would the queen have invoked the rule if Boss No hadn't suggested it? No one knows. You would like to play Boss No if you like using blackmail to outmaneuver your friends and force them to giving you their precious clout. All the while, you keep pushing your plans to ensure your success. Erdine, a patient and skilled warrior impersonating the princess of the great Arasian plains, her mother. Born to Princess Batsetseg from a conquest years ago, Erdine's mother is now too ill to comprehend the rule by midnight. And with their young half-sister as the heir, Erdine takes the responsibility to uphold their mother's legacy. Donning her armor and ancestral bow, they leave, determined to maintain the illusion that the princess responded to the rule's call. You'll want to play Erdine if you like planning out your moves in a technical way, even planning your next move in some cases to gain a better benefit. Freya, Princess of the Moonlock Spires. Princess Freya is a ruthless and bloodthirsty ruler, overseeing a mountainous domain frequently attacked by monsters, and through a pact with the unseelie Redcap, her bloodline possesses vampiric hair known as the Locks. These locks grant her strength and dominance over her land, which she views with superiority. Freya disregards her people's raids on neighboring lands and rejects the rule by midnight, preferring to eliminate other princesses to dismantle the Midnight Court in general. Her focus is on annihilating her fellow rulers and burning the court to the ground. You'll want to play Freya if you like attacking your enemies and draining them of their resources, while increasing your own power with each attack. Rosaline, Princess of Ephemeros. Rosaline, the youngest of 3 sisters and Princess of Ephemeros, was cursed with eternal foresight. Her dreams became filled with potential outcomes and consequences. One vision revealed her eldest sister's death in a battle, a fate she couldn't prevent. As her other sister's reign brought disaster, Rosaline orchestrated her middle sister's death subtly. Unnoticed as the cause, Rosaline's dream of calamity persists, except for one future where she becomes the Midnight Queen. With the Rule by Midnight's arrival, Rosaline feels compelled to act decisively. You want to play Rosaline if you like the idea of precognition and a dynamic playstyle between being in a trance versus being awake and the interesting conditions of both. Dr. Lynn Lux, Princess of Raisinboard. Dr. Lux, despite her inherited title, is more invested in her academic achievements. She indulges her curiosity in subjects like science, philosophy, and history. While researching, she stumbled upon an alchemical formula for strength and immortality. Driven by her scientific pursuit, she seeks to replicate it through non-magical means. Rule by Midnight's arrival presents her with the ideal opportunity to test her prototype and potentially unlock limitless knowledge and transformation with the Midnight Court's resources. You would like to play Dr. Lux if you like a little chaos in your life and love to roll the dice. This one deals heavily in tough decisions on discarding for certain effects of cards or using the card's full effect in the moment. Now, after choosing your princess, we move on to setting up your repertoire board. This is where all the magic happens. First, taking a look at the board, you place your health and clout tracker here at the top. This is the health tracker token, and this is the clout tracker token. The clout tracker starts off of the board because you start the game with 0 clout. Now, we grab the 10 starter cards for your princess. Those are the cards with gray gear symbols at the bottom and the 0 on both the top right and the top left. Place your starter deck at the top left of your board where it says deck. Just below your deck, you will be pulling your 3 war chest cards and placing them here. These will come into the game later. To the left of your deck and war chest, place your ultimate card. On your ultimate card, there is also an inner circle side that details out what you can do if you die before midnight. More on that later though, but for now, keep the ultimate side faced up. On the other side of the board, at the top right, you'll see the archive, which is just a fancy way of saying the discard pile. Just below that is the vault deck. These are your princess-specific cards that you will be able to purchase throughout the game. From the vault deck, you pull 3 cards and place them onto your board in these 3 areas. Just below your board is the armory. This is where you will be placing reaction cards, boons, banes, and summons, if your princess has them. However, at the start of the game, the armory should be empty. And the last cards to set are the declaration cards. They should have a portrait of your princess on the back and a portrait of the other princesses on the other side. Now you pull your first 5 cards and you are ready to play. So let's take a look at what your turn will look like. When your turn comes, you are able to do any action in any order until you decide that is your turn. Those actions include playing cards, placing down reaction cards, purchasing cards from the bazaar or vault, and refreshing either the vault or bazaar, using 2 clout for each. Let's take a look at each of these actions. First, let's take a look at what is involved with purchasing cards from either your own personal vault or the bazaar. On each card, there are 2 different numbers. One at the top right, which is the play cost, and one at the top left, which is the buy cost. The play cost is how much clout you need to play the card. Wow. The buy cost is how much clout you need to buy the card. So in this case, the Home by Midnight card costs 2 clout to purchase from my vault, and when I draw it and want to use it, it costs 1 clout to play it. Since this is still early in the game, I'll go ahead and purchase this card by using 2 clout. Then I will immediately pull a new vault card out and continue my turn. At any point during your turn, if you don't like any of the cards in your vault, you may spend 2 clout to refresh and pull 3 new cards. All of these rules about the vault also apply to the bazaar. You purchase, and immediately you pull a new one to replace it. Now, looking at how you play your card, remember you can only play whatever cards are currently in your hand, and you can only play them if you're willing and able to pay the play cost. There are quite a few different types of cards, so let's talk about each of them, starting with the utility card. Utility cards are either placed in the archive pile or are banished, meaning that they're no longer playable for the rest of the game. These cards will typically provide resources like health or clout in a pinch, and can also provide more unique benefits based on where the card is purchased. Boons and Banes are placed in the armory. Boons go into your armory while Banes go into an enemy's armory, and these cards remain until the time the card states or until they are dismissed by another effect. Summons are placed in your armory and given the loyalty indicated on the card. These little heart tokens represent the loyalty of this summon, and when attacking another opponent with a summoned card, you may choose to instead attack their summon directly. This means that any damage dealt or clout stolen results in the summon losing that many loyalty tokens. When you have a summon with a guardian trait, which is easily identified when you find the guardian in italics on the card like this, your princess cannot be attacked by any attack. The guardian's summon and any other types of summon can be targets as normal, but once your summon reaches 0 loyalty, the summon is dismissed from your armory and you can then be attacked. And finally, summons are immune to all other card effects outside of the attack itself. Next, let's talk about attack cards. When you play an attack card, remember to use your clout to pay the play cost, and then simply follow the instructions on the attack card itself. Then, when the attack is done, place the card in the archive unless stated otherwise. Attack cards also have a corresponding class on them, either Schemer, Brawler, or Caster. Each princess board has 2 classes, and each of these classes has a major and minor number. For Hephaestus, she is a Brawler and a Caster. Her Brawler major is 7, and her Brawler minor is 4. Her Caster major is 2, and minor is 1. However, these levels can increase or decrease based on different effects. These changes are denoted by these -1 and +1 tokens that you then place on your repertoire board just below your classes. And with all of this, you still need to be careful for when you're attacking other players because of the next card type, reaction cards. These cards are played prior to being attacked or whatever the card's trigger event is. When selecting reaction cards, you place them face down in your armory, leaving them there until the triggering event happens. When the triggering event happens, you must now pay the play cost, and if you are unable to pay the play cost, you cannot use the card. After paying the cost, you are then able to use that reaction card, and unfortunately, you cannot stack the same reaction cards toward the same triggering event, but you can use different reaction cards that have the same triggering event. For example, if I had placed a sidestep card and a counterattack card in my armory, and my opponent just attacked me, I would take 3 damage. However, with sidestep, I would pay the play cost, then I would have the damage rounding down to 1, and I would gain 2 clout. After that, I would activate my counterattack reaction, pay the play cost, and then deal 3 damage to the attacker and gain 3 clout. If there are multiple targeted players using a reaction card against the same triggering attack, the reactions start with the first reacting player after the attacker's turn. Then, once the reaction is fully resolved, it continues to the next reacting player. If your reaction card only negates damage, all other card effects still occur. However, if the reaction negates an attack card, then all effects are negated, including damage. Once you are done with your turn, you draw however many cards you need to reach your hand limit, which at the beginning of the game is 5 cards. Then it goes to the next person. Keep in mind that you don't have to use every card in your hand. If you have some cards that would be good to use on your next turn, you can keep them in your hand without discarding them, and you would then just replace whatever cards you do end up using in this turn. Once every player has taken their turn, that ends the round, and now you must advance the clock hand by 1 hour. There are special events that happen at specific hours in the game. These are easily found on the clock tower's platform to the left of the dice tray. But to summarize, when the clock strikes 5, you must replace all afternoon bazaar cards with the new twilight bazaar cards, then reveal the top 3 cards in the bazaar. Then, the hand limit increases to 6, and the game continues with the first player drawing another card to now have this 6th card. Once the clock strikes 6, this is where things get interesting. Now, each of the princesses must discuss who they will or will not pledge their allegiances to if they are eliminated. Any verbal promises that you make during this time does not need to seal your fate, because they only bind you to another princess if you have a declaration card. The back of these cards have a portrait of your princess, and on the front side of the cards are portraits of the other princesses. For this, you will secretly take whichever princess you actually want to pledge your allegiance to, and place it face down on the board. I typically place it just underneath the ultimate card so that it's away, and when you flip it over for the inner circle card, it's right there. So what happens when you are eliminated then? Well, that's where these declaration cards come into play. If the princess that you pledged allegiance to is still in the game and doesn't already have an advisor, then you will join that princess in their inner circle and become their advisor. As their advisor, on your turn, you then must perform one of your 2 inner circle abilities that are distinct and specific to each different princess. These abilities can be found on the backside of your ultimate card when you flip it over when you're eliminated. This is what the inner circle card looks like. If the princess you pledged your allegiance to already has an advisor, well, sorry bud, you're out. However, if you are the advisor to the winning princess, the queen, then both players win. When the clock strikes 8, you replace the Twilight Bazaar cards with the Midnight Bazaar cards, and then pull the top 3 cards for the bazaar. Then the 3 cards in each princess's war chest becomes available for purchase, and finally, each player gains 3 clout at the beginning of their next turn. When the clock strikes 10, the hand limit is then increased to 7, and all players draw the additional card at the start of their turn. And finally, when the clock strikes 12, the game ends. If at any point only one princess remains or the clock strikes this 12 mark, the game ends and each princess counts their clout and health, each point equaling 1 victory point. The one with the highest victory point total is crowned the new queen, and their advisor, if they have one, also wins the game. And that's it. This game is pretty simple and very dynamic with the 6 different playstyles to choose from. If you found value in this video, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with your fellow players before they come over for the game night. And if not, no worries. I hope you have a great day and have fun playing Queen by Midnight.